Guys, everyone is still talking about President Biden pardoning his son Hunter, and apparently a lot of Democrats are fuming over the decision. Experts say this could really hurt Biden's re-election bid in 2028. This could really be the...
That's true, he could run again, couldn't he? And I wouldn't actually put it past the Democrats to take, once they discover that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez may not be their best pick, which they're talking about. Every day is an IQ test. A lot of people are really not competing at all. Boy, we got a full cup today, I'll tell you. Pete Hegseth, President Trump's nominee for Secretary of Defense. Well, there is a Wall Street Journal piece today saying, oh no, President Trump is looking at Pete Hegseth, and it looks like won't have enough Republican votes in the Senate to get Pete Hegseth across the finish line to become the Secretary of the entire Department of Defense. And talking about replacing him with Ron DeSantis, the Republican governor of Florida, of course, to come and be the Secretary of Defense, which might not be the best political move for Ron DeSantis, but we'll see about all that. I believe it all began with the Wall Street Journal, and now everybody's all over it. The Washington Post, the whole gang all over it. Of course, they've been out to get Pete Hegseth from the first mention of his name, the Democrat Party gang, and that means the news media, right? And this morning, with the Wall Street Journal leading the way, fascinating set of developments, I guess you could call them. And Pete Hegseth, he's got a mother. He's got a mom, and her name is Penelope, and she was on the television this morning just about an hour ago, as a matter of fact. And she came to the defense of her son, which is nice to see because, she's the mom and he's the son. And I've got that for you because didn't expect that. She's the one that the New York Times got a hold of the email, probably by way of the National Security Agency or something like that. The Democrats hacking into people's emails because they collect all of our metadata, and then they can do with all of our metadata and our emails and our phone calls and our text messages what they wish politically, which makes us kind of like the Soviet Union in the bad old days, the USSR. But I'll get to that. Also, another pick for DEA, who is a sheriff, withdrew his name yesterday because it turns out he was really not a good pick for President Trump. It's a guy who was raiding churches during COVID shutdowns and arresting all the wrong people. Not the best pick. I think we're going to need a little refinement of the vetting process in Team Trump because that one was a really bad one. And it might not be the only really bad one, but this one is bad. And I will share that with you because whack-a-doodle-doo. Who's in charge of this thing? Well, we've got a lot going on in addition to all of that as well, because there's we still have the Hunter Biden. We opened with another Hunter Biden joke of sorts about the pardon and all that, and it turns out, you see this, Hunter Biden owes a landlord in Venice, California, not Venice, Italy, but Venice, California, owes him $300,000 apparently for 1 year's rent. Now, I've never paid that much in rent over the course of a year. How much is that a month? It's a lot. It's what it is, like $25,000 a month or something crazy. I haven't whipped out my Bomar calculator yet. That seems like a lot of money for rent on a house in Venice, which is maybe not the most beautiful place in California, but people live there, I suppose. And Hunter Biden, now, is he exempt because of the pardon? Does he not have to pay that $300,000 because he didn't pay the rent, during the time frame for which his father pardoned him all crimes that may or may not have been committed? And if he doesn't pay the $300,000 in rent, then what can the landlord do about it? The owner of the property do about it? Probably can't do anything. They'd have to bring charges again. Reality is they can bring charges again in California, and it would be a state issue. And Joe Biden's pardon does not take care of all state laws broken by Hunter Biden. Federal laws, yes. State laws, no, apparently. Speaking of which, remember Fani Willis? Remember Fani Willis? She's in Atlanta, Georgia, part of the lynch mob, the Democrat Party's lynch mob, targeting President Trump for political reasons, abusing their political power. Fannie Willis. And I remember that whole thing, and with her boyfriend and all that. He's not my boyfriend. And Fannie Willis is in the news today because, kind of humorously, Fannie Willis dealt blow. She's dealt a blow. They got a blow there, right there, in court over Trump case. And she has to turn over documents about her communications with the special counsel, which would make it an official conspiracy. And really, I think the Justice Department should continue to be used in exactly the same way it's been used for the last 4 years, just for the other political party. And that'd be fair, right? Because that's turnabout is fair play and all that stuff. What's good for the goose and all of that. And you know how they love the goose. You got to keep them away from the kids when they're talking about goosing, but never mind that. Remarkable stuff. Also, Kash Patel, President Trump's nominee to become the FBI director. Well, Trump's pick to lead the FBI targeted in Iranian hack. We got the Iranians targeting Kash Patel, and that's because the Democrats and the Iranians are on the same team, because the Ayatollahs, the terrorists, the world's number one state sponsors of terror, the kidnappers, the murderers, the regime in Tehran, the Ayatollah boys, and they are on Team Democrat, and the Democrats are on Team Ayatollah because they funnel billions and billions of dollars so that they can provide arms and money to Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah and the Houthi rebels, and try to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And Joe Biden helped, and Kamala Harris. They all help because they're not on the side of civilization anymore. They're the left, and the left is the most brutal, vicious gang of killers in the history of the world. They have no ethics, no morals. Who was it we were talking about yesterday? The ethics, the Democrats and the ethics. They are truly embarrassing, honestly. Wah, wah, wah. Yes, sir. We've also got Team Obama people coming out and taking shots at Joseph Robinette Biden as a big fat liar. Well, he's not really fat, but he's a big fat liar, because that's just a reference to his lying, not his relative obesity like Michael Moore or anything like that. Remarkable things. The world of politics. Wonder why nobody wants to go into politics. And the Democrats make sure nobody wants to go into politics. Remarkable stuff. Yeah, and I did mention Trump's DA pick, Chad Chronister, withdraws his name over COVID arrest controversy. And the New York Post has that story. The Washington Post does not. They're not in the news business at all, not even close. Remarkable stuff. And as I said, Trump mulls replacing Pete Hegseth with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, the Wall Street Journal popping with that one today, and then suddenly it's all over the place. And we've got that. I don't know if that's a lock, but it's being talked about today. Remarkable things. And CNN, they've got a guy named Harry Enton, which is not really a good name, is it? CNN's Harry Enton highlights Americans' drastic souring on FBI as worries loom over Trump nominee Kash Patel. My goodness gracious is the headline in the Communist Front Group Mediaite. Remarkable stuff. And yeah, the FBI has never had a lower approval rating with the American people, and that's because the Democrats have politicized and abused the FBI for their own political purposes to advance the goals and interests of their radical extremist Democrat organ harvesting, child genital mutilating party, the Democrat Party. Isn't that amazing? Yes, it is. So we got that. And in New York, we've got the trial, Daniel Penny trial. The jury is convening. The Democrats are hoping to lynch the former Marine from a lamppost in New York and leave him there until the crows peck out his eyes, because the left, they're just that nasty and that vicious. But the jury is convening today, and we will see. It's quite possible that we'll get a verdict out of New York while we're on the air here for the next 3 hours. I certainly wouldn't rule it out. Isn't that amazing? Yes, it is. The people on Fox News, they've got a big headline up. We got a bunch of TV screens in the movie studio here, in the radio studio here, and 50-year-old male shot outside New York City hotel. Now, I'm wondering if that has anything to do with the tens of thousands of illegal aliens who have been convicted of crimes that are roaming the sidewalks and the streets of New York. I bet that's what they're wondering in the newsrooms up in New York, because we got a whole bunch of illegal alien stories that have to do with crime and no punishment. It's the new Democrat mantra thing. It's a crime and no punishment. For example, migrant boy, I love this. This is the New York Post again. Migrant boy, 13, and masked buddies stab man with brass knuckles knife. Everybody has one of those brass knuckles knives, right? It's like a big combat knife sized dagger. And for the grip, it has brass knuckles built into it. And the 13-year-old illegal alien criminal stabbed a man because the illegal alien punks, they stopped a guy and said, hey, take a picture of us with this phone that we stole that you're paying for, one or the other. And the man said, no, thanks. So the 13-year-old illegal alien with his illegal alien buddies stabbed the man using this big dagger with brass knuckles on it, the kind that everyone has in their car at all times. Remarkable stuff. Also in Georgia, Trinidad gangster Jose Ibarra. You remember he murdered Laken Riley, and he was just convicted about a week ago of murdering Laken Riley. Well, now he and his lawyers, he's got a team of lawyers because of Democrats, demanding a new trial on the murder conviction. He was convicted in the murder of young 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley, and now he's demanding a new trial, and the Democrats, they're on the side of crime. They're on not just criminals, because in order to love the crime, you have to love the criminals. The Democrats don't love much, but they certainly love crime, not children who they would like to genitally mutilate if they make it past the abortion nets. But then, let's have more gangsters, child gangsters from Venezuela. Let's have more Tren de Aragua murders. Let's have more. What do we have? 19 states, or is it 16 states where Tren de Aragua has a major foothold? Amazing stuff. Also in Chicago, yesterday, a meeting with the city council there. Chicago residents rip mayor over spending on migrants. Quote, worst mayor in America, end quote. And some of the nice Chicago residents, boy, they're really giving them an earful in Chicago, and they're right about everything, and they sound like me, these Chicago people. Remarkable things going on there. Illegal aliens committing crimes all over the place and murders, and now I want a retrial and spend more money on me, millions and millions of dollars, then put me in prison for life and spend millions keeping me in prison for life. And then we'll have the Tren de Aragua gang in our prisons across the United States of America because of the Democrats. And it's all because of Democrat Party policies. They're here to fundamentally transform the United States of America. They are so far from being on our side. They've never been less on our side before. They are closer on the political spectrum to Lee Harvey Oswald than they are to John F. Kennedy, closer on the political spectrum to Sirhan Sirhan than they are to Bobby Kennedy. They wouldn't allow Robert F. Kennedy or John F. Kennedy in the Democrat Party today. As Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, he said his father and his uncle would find today's Democrat Party unrecognizable. And that's certainly true. Also, this left-wing replacement, this competitor for radical left-wing extremists who hate humanity and America, too. They stood up this Blue Sky. It's a fake X, right? A ripoff of X. And they created it for left-wing radicals. And they're banning people already because they're fascists, they're left-wing fascists. And as the fascists in the 20th century were, Blue Sky social media suspends, I love this, far-right libs of TikTok account. There's nothing far-right about them. They make fun of liberals and the things that they post on the internet. And all they do is repost these things that the lunatics post online and say, look at how crazy these people are. So naturally, the fascist leftists at Blue Sky have banned libs of TikTok. It's Saul Alinsky's rule number 5 in Rules for Radicals, right, about ridicule being your most important weapon, your most potent weapon. Democrats have been using it for generations now, and conservatives use it. They want to ban you like the goose-stepping fascists that they are, and they call themselves liberals. Just amazing stuff. Another illegal alien, Chinese illegal alien who overstayed his student visa, arrested for shipping arms to North Korea because there are commies there, and the Democrats, God knows they love commies. Isn't that amazing? I got a hate crimes update for you. You'll never guess who's behind them. And the craziest deal that I've ever heard having to do with Robert F. Kennedy Stadium, football stadium, and the Washington Redskins. That's right, the Redskins. Got the craziest political deal from the Democrats that I've ever heard. That's coming up as well. And we remain at 888-630-9625. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. Child genital mutilation going before the Supreme Court today. Remarkable stuff. And how many members of Gen Z identify as LGBTQIAA? What the Democrats have done. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Ivan, calling from Miramar Beach in beautiful Florida. Ivan, you're on the Chris Plant Show. Ivan. He just dropped. Did he really? It says on the board that he couldn't stay long. I guess he really meant it. Let's go to Joseph, calling from Rogers, Arkansas. Joseph, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Well, hello, Chris. I'm perplexed. I've been expecting someone to make this conclusion. The news media has never talked about Joe Biden's promise to pardon Hunter because Joe Biden thought Kamala would be president and she would pardon him. But no one's ever mentioned that. So why hasn't that conclusion been made?
Well, it's a perfectly valid point. And why didn't he do it before? You're right. He thought it'd look better for him and for his disastrous legacy if he had Kamala commit the evil deed of pardoning him of all crimes for more than a decade, except maybe his $300,000 in back rent in Venice, California. But that is a perfect good point. Then it wouldn't fall to him, and he wouldn't look like the villain of the story. Kamala would do it for him. His hands would be clean, and he expected, he believed that was going to happen because the New York Times told him and CNN told him. Wrong again. The Democrats love the FBI. They trust the FBI more than ever before because the Democrat Party has turned them all into fascists, I think. Is that fair to say? I think that might be very fair. Amazing stuff. Looking at Kash Patel to go in and restore trust in the FBI because Republicans are in favor of shaking up the FBI because we've been watching the FBI with their staged for TV event at Mar-a-Lago and targeting the Republican president and presidential candidate and going after his campaign people and not Hunter Biden. So Democrats are like, yeah, this is working really well for us because we're all political fanatics and extremists. And we love abuses of government because we're the left. Isn't that amazing? Got kind of an amazing CNN thing on this as well with a new study that is out. And trust in the FBI, all-time low. And it's Republicans driving the train on this, which is more than a little bit ironic. But the Democrats, they love abuses of power. They love government abuses of power. and especially when the abuses of power are by their agents, their operatives inside the government, inside the FBI. It's quite remarkable. And they've got this guy at CNN who they call Harry N10. Harry N10. I know why N10 reminds me of like sweet rolls they sell in Chicago, N10s, something like that. But then Harry, when you think about sweet rolls, not so good. But this Harry N10 guy, he was on CNN yesterday and talking about the new numbers on the FBI and Republicans not trusting the FBI for obvious reasons. Democrats loving the FBI because they've become a very corrupt left-wing party. They're like a third world country. The Democrat Party is the third world. The left is the third world. And I've been talking about this for many years, how when the left arrives in your country, they bring with them the third world in a backpack, and they unleash it on your country, on the world. It's quite remarkable. But this Harry N10 guy talking about the FBI and the lack of trust, in particular, from Republicans when it comes to what the Federal Bureau of Investigation has been doing all these years.
Patel has real reason to believe that Americans would go along with changes that he might potentially make at the FBI, and there's a reason why Donald Trump feels like he can make this change. It's because if you look here, FBI is doing an excellent or good job. Look at this time trend line. You go back to 2014, right? It was 59% of Americans, then 57% in 2019, 50% in 2022. Look at where we are today. My goodness gracious, just 41% of Americans think the FBI is doing an excellent or good job. That is by far the lowest number this century.
This century, you know, we're 24 years into the century, we're a quarter of the way through the century. And it really should be in the last century altogether, because that's pretty bad news for the FBI. And if you can't trust, if the American people don't trust our federal law enforcement, and increasingly we do not, at least if you're paying attention, then you don't trust the FBI, you don't trust federal law enforcement. You see it as a political tool of the permanent bureaucracy, also known as the deep state. And the Democrats have wheedled their way in there, and they've filled the ranks of the permanent bureaucracy with the Peter Strzok's and Lisa Pages of the world, who can literally smell the Trump supporters and their disdain. They drip with disdain for mainstream Americans, people that serve in the military and actually serve in law enforcement rather than in politics and all of that good stuff. But remarkable stuff, because you know, the drastic souring on FBI as worries loom over Trump nominee Kash Patel. The headline, my goodness gracious. CNN senior data reporter Harry N10 highlighted on Tuesday polling that shows a drastic drop in trust in the FBI, and suggesting that the declining faith in the institution might have factored into President-elect Trump's decision to nominate Kash Patel to lead it. You know, these guys, I said this to Michael Piercy this morning when we were listening to this and talking about this. These people, the Harry Entons in the CNN newsroom and stuff, they literally haven't followed the news for the last 4 years. I talk about this from time to time, how these news people don't follow the news. They don't know what's in the news. They don't remember stories from a week ago, much less 6 months ago. They have no idea the long list of Trump people, Trump inner circle people, and including Trump himself, targeted by the FBI. The FBI went into Melania Trump's underwear drawer and rumbled around in there, and nobody knows why. They might have been playing dress up. There is no video of them ransacking Mar-a-Lago, but they brought with them a folder full of classified document cover sheets, and the FBI stacked up documents in a circular fashion at not just one stack, but a series of individual stacks of papers. Nobody knows what's in the stacks of papers. And then the FBI put classified top secret cover sheets, brightly colored cover sheets, top secret and stuff. And the FBI placed these cover sheets on the documents that they had stacked up. And then the FBI put a magazine rack next to it where President Trump was on the cover of a couple of magazines. And they did that there. That had nothing to do with classified documents. They thought it was going to be, it's about their disdain, their open disdain for Donald. Oh, look, in his own office, in his own mansion, he's got magazines with him on the cover. What kind of an ego is that? And that was what the FBI was staging in the photo, and they were staging it. They were staging a crime scene, framing the President of the United States, bringing their own classified cover sheets, then photographing the staged scene that they had staged, then handing the photos that they had shot of the scene that they had staged over to left-wing media so that they could use it to attack Trump and mock and ridicule Trump. The FBI is no longer the FBI that I grew up with and that so many of us grew up with. Remarkable stuff. The Democrats, aren't they amazing? This is what they do to everything they touch. They are toxic. They are poisonous. So he's talking about the declining faith in the institution, and it might have something to do with picking Kash Patel, who has a long history of working in government as a public defender, as a federal prosecutor at the Justice Department, as chief of staff at the Pentagon. As you know, he's got a lot of experience, varied experience in Washington, D.C. and in government, and he's aware of the fact that the FBI has been targeting the political enemies, and that's the right word, of the Democrat Party, which has an enemies list. And imagine their enemies list. Makes the New York City phone book look like a Bazooka Joe comic because they've got about 80 million people on their enemies list. And they literally, played audio this week of people on CNN talking about the enemies of America. And it's everybody that voted for Trump is a danger, and they're warning us about it. That's un-American, to say the very least. Now, Harry Enton joined CNN's Kate Bolden on Tuesday and argued that there is sufficient proof that Americans could back Kash Patel's proposed drastic changes to the FBI, as there has been a sharp decline in support over the last 10 years for the FBI. That's because they've been revealed to be profoundly political and corrupt at the highest levels. Not every rank and file FBI agent, of course. We had a great career FBI agent came along on our sea cruise last year, and a couple of sea cruises, actually. Great American, and plenty of FBI agents are great Americans. And I've known at least a few over the years. And they're not crooks, they're not bad guys, but the Democrats have stocked the pond at the highest levels with their corrupt operatives, their agents. And now it's a political organization, and that makes us like the Soviet Union, more like the Soviet Union than the United States in our traditions. So the current approval rating for the institution is the lowest it has been in this century. You just heard Harry Enton say. This is according to data collected by the Gallup polling organization. And Patel has received bipartisan backlash over his nomination. They love that bipartisan backlash. They get one Republican to say one critical word, and they say, oh, look, bipartisan opposition. And they never do that with Democrats because the news media, forget the FBI, the news media is the most corrupt institution in America. Here is Harry Enton at CNN.
Among Republicans, is the FBI doing an excellent or good job? This is where you really see the drop-off. You go back to 2014. I'm going to come to your side of the screen. It's 62%. 2019, look at that, 46%. 2022, 29%. Now we're tied for the lowest point at this century among Republicans at 26%. That is a drop of more than half since 2014.
More than half since he's doing the math. He's having a little trouble. Very excited, though. Very exuberant, isn't he? So the numbers of Republicans, percentages of Republicans, the Republican voters, self-identified Republicans, not transgenders. Like, I think those numbers are kind of like the Democrats' transgender numbers, aren't they? Like 46% of Democrats are now transgender. What is up with that? Isn't that crazy? Yeah, so I said 2014, forget the party affiliation. In 2014, 10 years ago, Gallup found that 59% of Americans believe the FBI was doing an excellent job or a good job. And now, we've We've got that cut in half. Isn't that amazing? Number dropped from 59% to 57% in 2019, then 50% in 2022. Then the number fell to 41% from 59%, right? Call it 60 to 40. That's a drop of about a third. And the Trump administration, of course, during and after his first term in the White House, and that's remarkable. And the Democrats, they kind of like the FBI because it's doing the Democrat Party's work for them.
Among Democrats, it's just not the same story at all. All right? Among Democrats, it was 54% in 2014. Then you saw that number shoot up to 66% in 2019. Then look at this, 79% in 2022. We have seen some drop off since then to 67%, but that is still significantly higher than it was in 2014 at 54%. The bottom line is this. If Republicans have become much less trusting of the FBI, Democrats have become more trusting.
Well, that tells you everything you need to know about the filthy, rotten, stinking, corrupt leadership at the FBI, and Christopher Wray must go. And some people in the FBI have engaged in conspiracies, political conspiracies, not conspiracy theories, but acting in concert with others to undermine, for political reasons, major American political figures. And the CIA people, the felonious 51 that signed on to that letter, telling us all that the Hunter Biden laptop had all the earmarks of Russian disinformation. The fact is, John Brennan has all the earmarks of Russian disinformation. And the 51 idiots, some of them are just idiots and jerks, and some of them are really corrupt people. They tampered in our presidential election. The intelligence community, I've got to say, and I spent 10 years covering the intelligence community, along with the U.S. military when I was assigned to the Pentagon. And I've never seen things in such horrible and tawdry condition. Wah, wah, wah. All right, let's see. Let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Mike, calling from Sunshine, Maryland. Michael, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Chris, thanks for taking my call. I told your call screener that J. Edgar Hoover was appointed director of the FBI by Calvin Coolidge, and he died in office under Richard Nixon. How did that guy keep his job for so long? He kept, quote unquote, book. I'm using quotation marks with my fingers. He kept book on everybody, and the mafia kept book on him. And I think the FBI has been corrupt since its founding, and it continues to be corrupt. And I don't give the rank and file much latitude or leeway. I think they're more concerned about their pensions than the Constitution.
Well, it certainly looks that way all over the place, doesn't it? And yeah, J. Edgar Hoover became the director of the FBI under Franklin Roosevelt in 1935. And you're right, he remained director until Richard Nixon. I believe it was Lyndon Johnson that made him FBI director for life. And he's a real piece of work. And you say he kept book, meaning he kept files on the politicians in Washington, and he threatened them, and he spied on them, and collected dirt on them, like the Steele dossier kind of business that J. Edgar Hoover was involved with. He's buried in the Congressional Cemetery here in Washington, D.C. My best girl and I toured that cemetery during the Wuhan Red Death time, and he's got a giant FBI tombstone there with a giant FBI seal on the FBI tombstone where J. Edgar Hoover is. And his man friend, Clyde Tolson, is buried just a few feet away from him. Their relationship they kept very quiet over the years. And it's an amazing story, the J. Edgar Hoover story. And honestly, the FBI story with the classic movie, the FBI story, Jimmy Stewart, and the TV show Forever, dun, 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 with Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., the FBI. We were all raised on the FBI being a heroic organization. But the left is here, right, Mike? And they have corrupted the FBI because it's one of the things they touched. And they corrupt everything they touch. The CIA, the intelligence community, the felonious 51 lying to us about the Hunter Biden laptop. I mentioned a few minutes ago that a man was shot and killed in Midtown Manhattan outside of a hotel. And that story has developed a little bit in the last few minutes. Well, it's developed a lot in the last few minutes. The headline from the Wall Street Journal, United Healthcare CEO fatally shot outside Manhattan hotel. The CEO of United Healthcare, a giant healthcare, of course, organization, Brian Thompson, was shot and killed near the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan, and the suspect is at large, is on the run, and the NYPD, who the Democrats want to defund, and healthcare and healthcare companies demonized by the Democrat Party all day, every day for years now. And now the CEO, there is talk, was it targeted? Was it random? Because the Democrats have turned New York into Escape from New York, Death Wish, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. So New York isn't the safest place in the world these days, and tens of thousands of illegal aliens with known criminal records that the Biden administration imported into New York. And I got to say, I've got friends in New York. I've got family in New York, in Manhattan and beyond. And it is a dangerous place to be. That's not a good thing. But this is a wild story right here. The United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, fatally shot outside Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. And it says possible targeted attack, the headline in the New York Post. Because, healthcare is something that the left has targeted and blamed for all of the world's problems. Of course, they, bring healthcare to hundreds of millions of people. The Democrats want to take it over. They want the state to take it over because it works so well in Great Britain. Maybe we could make things better here by making things worse. So the CEO, United Healthcare Insurance Division, gunned down Wednesday outside the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. Police say was a targeted attack. That would be an assassination. Huh.